I'm here to represent an oppressed nation. I'm here to represent an oppressed society where I believe we've been walking around in ignorance. And I feel it's time for us to have our eyes opened and not allow the wool to be pulled over our eyes.
Speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province. Now think about that.
Greetings, citizens of indoctrinated truth. Shall we begin part 2? Today there are sightings all over the country of Walmarts being put in as a shell and then seemingly converted to prisons.
I was going to say, it's kind of unusual that we see something like that pull in the parking lot and just be sitting there for a good minute with just one person in there. All this talk about Walmart becoming FEMA concentration camps, and it just kind of makes us wonder what the heck's going on.
They good at everything out of Walmart. That shit crazy. Look at that, they just good at everything out of there. Everything gone.
I mean that.
Nothing in there.
Nothing in there.
People like Cheney could Americanize that Guantanamo torture too, considering Cheney has never had anything but support of inhumanity.
All right, sit down and shut up.
The CIA hid post-9/11 torture programs from Congress for 9 years. Tenet's CIA trumped the known torture, however. Redacted from any information the public knows is the outsourced torture camps.
On September 17, 2001, President Bush issued a still classified directive authorizing the CIA to hold and interrogate prisoners in so-called black sites throughout the world. Nowhere are the countries that hosted those secret prisons named in the 528-page summary of a Senate report released Tuesday. The names of every single foreign participant are redacted. Instead, they're given color code names such as Detention Site Green and Detention Site Black. Cross-referencing with other clues in the report, the Washington Post did some detective work and might have identified the 5 countries referenced: Poland, Lithuania, Romania, Afghanistan, and Thailand.
The CIA abducts people and spirits them away to these secret sites where no one will ever know of their screams.
Was kept shackled and hooded, suspended with his wrists handcuffed to an overhead bar that would not allow him to lower his arms. Naja was also left in the cold and fed poor quality food, and was even forced to wear a nappy, having no access to toilet facilities. In an article, the salt pit was described as the CIA's sadistic dungeon.
Human Rights Watch has been trying to prosecute Tenet as a war criminal, but US officials are historically above the law.
A US Senate committee in 2014 provided enough evidence to open an inquiry boarding. The other officials included in the HRW report were former Vice President Dick Cheney and former CIA Director George Tenet. CIA interrogators carried out the program on detainees following the September 11 attacks in 2001.
Despite critique, Cheney would claim he would set up torture programs all over again.
Facing heavy criticism after the Senate intelligence report was released this past week, former Vice President Dick Cheney was unapologetic today and said the Bush administration got it right. Former Vice President Dick Cheney, unwavering in his support for the harsh interrogation tactics that happened on his watch, today ratcheted up his defense on Meet the Press.
I'd do it again in a minute.
Dick Cheney never showed an ounce of regret after he shot a guy in his face.
Everything, which of course is to
immediately screw something up, then lie about it, blame the victim. You notice that the story keeps changing. At first, he was just peppered. He was sprayed, just something between friends. It brought them closer. And then we found out, no, actually he got shot in the face. Then today, the thing went to his heart. I heard by tomorrow it's going to be that Dick Cheney blew his head off at the dinner table.
Halliburton is a danger to their truckers who convoy into hostile territory with permission to carry weapons.
In cold blood.
They just killed him. Oh my God.
3 truckers, all employed by the Halliburton subsidiary, KBR, were killed that day. The aftermath was caught on tape by a U.S. spy plane, showing Iraqis stripping and stoning one of the victims.
You damn right I'm scared. I'm going home when this shit's done.
Meanwhile, arrogant Dick goes nowhere without 20 car motorcades. The U.S. Marines rekindled the Vietnam-era nickname for Brown and Root, burn and loot. Sickness is brought in clouds of smoke as KBR burns tires, lithium batteries, asbestos insulation, pesticide containers, styrofoam, metals, paints, plastic, medical waste and even human corpses by military camps.
9 new lawsuits allege that KBR Inc. jeopardized the health and safety of American soldiers and contractors in Iraq and Afghanistan by burning vast quantities of unsorted waste in enormous open-air burn pits with no safety controls.
While constantly sending poisoned water.
The water was not treated as it was supposed to have been treated. Contaminated water was provided to the troops. Some troops got sick. In some cases, this water that was twice as contaminated as raw water from the Euphrates River was flowing as non-potable water to these military bases.
Going in one's army tent was no relief as the tents were also poisoned by Halliburton's ineptitude.
The tents that we were staying in were completely moldy and everybody was getting sick with respiratory infections. They're getting paid millions of dollars. Why can't they even give us a tent that doesn't make us sick to live in it?
And a Halliburton shower could kill you.
As a young man doing a tour of duty in Baghdad stepped into his shower and was electrocuted and killed almost instantly. It's something that most of us really can't imagine. Sad as it is when these troops die in combat, it's not expected that when they step in to take a shower, they're going to be electrocuted. This work is being done by private contractors in Iraq. It has gotten some congressional attention because there are about 15 troops publicly acknowledged that have been electrocuted.
And if you do not die from a shower, you might get sick from water even worse than that one drinks.
The water we showered in every single day was extremely contaminated. And when I talk about contaminated water, I'm saying malaria, typhus, giardia, cryptosporidium. I mean, the list is really, really long.
Halliburton is accused by its own employees of exposing troops to contaminated water in Iraq.
Sickness will only get worse in Halliburton-backed medical facilities.
Outsourcing. Just take 2 parts Halliburton, add 1 part Hurricane Katrina, and you'll get a $120 million contract of ineptness.
Halliburton's KBR sets up tax shells, which doubled under Cheney's rule, so no taxes come back to the US. And functioning headquarters left Houston to set up in Dubai.
So the executives at Halliburton, after squeezing dry every US dollar from these no-bid contracts, that means there was no other bidder besides Halliburton. Now they're moving headquarters to Dubai to protect their profits.
KBR overcharges, stealing from taxpayers outright.
Halliburton charged the government $100 for every bag of clothes they washed.
Whenever we got our laundry back, it felt worse than when we turned it in. Everything was still grimy. I stopped taking my laundry into KBR, and instead, I was washing it in the sink. And I was told by my chain of command that I was not allowed to wash my laundry on my own. I had to take it to KBR to have it washed, even though we all knew that they were doing a horrible job because they get $99 a bag for a bag of laundry that I could do at home for $3.
a cost-plus arrangement that critics say leaves little incentive to save. The more taxpayer dollars Halliburton spends, the more Halliburton makes.
Charles Smith got canned from the Department of Defense for pointing out extra billions going to KBR for no reason.
During my time as chief of the Field Support Division, I personally saw KBR submit over $1 billion worth of unsupported charges to the government. The Defense Contract Audit Agency, DCAA, documented as much as $1.8 billion in unsupported costs during that time.
Despite the firing of Smith, multi-billion-dollar overages continue to be reported to Congress. Cheney has set up a steady stream of subsidies to Halliburton on top of this. George Tenet also got in on the growing privatization of military with Kinetic.
Anticipate and shape tomorrow, and give our customers the edge when and where it really matters.
Cheney has been called Satan, Prince of Darkness, and Darth Vader so much he responds to those names.
When it provides an opportunity to talk about Ronald Reagan's visionary strategic defense initiative. I'm sure Ed Follner thought, well, if we're going to talk about Star Wars, we might as well invite Darth Vader.
You don't need the Pope here to get you out of the deal with the devil. I'm sure he'll honor his contract.
Meanwhile, George Tenet would write a book on 9/11 filled with so many lies that cited people were proving the impossibility of his claims on page 1. Other verified accounts went against his 9/11 Commission testimonies, not that there weren't enough present verifiable lies at the time of the Commission.
Question is, do you know why the FBI was not notified of the fact that an Al-Qaeda operative now was known in March of the year 2000 to have entered the United States? Why was the CIA? Why did the CIA not specifically notify the CIA? That's my question. The FBI.
Sir, if we weren't aware of it when it came in the headquarters, we couldn't have notified them. Nobody read that cable in March, in the March timeframe.
So that the cable that said that Hazmi had entered the United States came to your headquarters, nobody read it.
Yes, sir. It would.
Cheney blocked a no evil move of Condoleezza Rice brokering a deal to get North Korea not to develop nuclear weapons. Halliburton his shit security having had Petrobras computers stolen while in their custody. KBR continues to have a hold on our wars in defiance of common sense.
Defense contractor KBR Incorporated has been awarded a $35 million Pentagon contract involving major electrical work. At the precise moment, it is under criminal investigation in the electrocution deaths of at least 2 U.S. soldiers in Iraq. The announcement of the new KBR contract came just months after the Pentagon rejected the company's explanations of serious mistakes in Iraq.
The Deepwater Horizon false flag was indicated by BP's CEO and Goldman Sachs dumping stock before the spill. Halliburton then made money off the cleanup team and they pled guilty to the George Soros masterminded BP oil spill, making disaster capitalists rich, while BP was dodging complicity. And Halliburton's punishment for the worst ecological disaster in history? The joke of $20,000.
On documents, BP and Halliburton intentionally destroyed the results of slurry testing for the well, in part to eliminate any risk that this evidence would be used against it at trial. The oil company also said Halliburton appeared to have lost computer evidence showing how the cement performed, with Halliburton maintaining that the information is simply gone.
It also owned much of the Macondo well that erupted and spilled millions of barrels of oil into the Gulf. Halliburton was contracted to design and build the well.
There's a growing pool of evidence, to say nothing of the oil, suggesting a far more apt name for this spill, Cheney's Katrina. So why Cheney's Katrina? His former company, Halliburton, led by his former protege, CEO David Rockefeller, did the cementing to seal the Deepwater well, a process families of the dead now claim led to the fatal blowout. Halliburton confirming it finished cementing only 20 hours before the damn thing blew. Just like Halliburton had just finished cementing this Australian well when it blew on August 21st of last year, causing what is now called the Montara spill, a government...
And continues to have no bid, aka no competition, in contracts.
The Army also awarded the work to KBR over objections from members of Congress, who've pushed the Pentagon to seek bids for further logistics contracts. The Justice Department says the government will join a suit filed by whistleblowers alleging that 2 freight forwarding firms gave KBR Transportation Department employees kickbacks in the form of meals, drinks, sports tickets, and golf outings.
While those huge overages go into massive employee and lobbying kickbacks, the hydrofracking Halliburton invented destroys water supplies.
The EPA confirmed that the tap water contained both methane gas and benzene, a known carcinogen.
When we had a treaty with Iran, war-hungry Cheney said we were the closest to nuclear war since World War II. Cheney left the Department of Defense and joined the American Enterprise Institute, a neocon war think tank.
In top-secret meetings about enhanced interrogations, I made my own beliefs clear. I was and remain a strong proponent of our enhanced interrogation program.
He still works with intelligence and mercenaries in the private sector, as does Halliburton. Halliburton works with Rothschild-owned Iraqi intelligence and terrorist organization diligence. Quite as sinister are the many brutal gang tapes in Halliburton.
A 20-year-old allegedly drugged and viciously gang raped by her Halliburton co-workers at Camp Hope inside Baghdad's Green Zone. Jamie Lee Jones says shortly after she was raped, Halliburton KBR security locked her in a shipping cell for nearly 24 hours without food and water, guarded by 2 men with machine guns. Jones says she was finally able to call her father back in the U.S. for help. His local congressman in Texas called the embassy and
After Jones came forward, 40 more women followed, having almost identical experiences. However, Halliburton put a rape clause in their contracts which keep them from repercussion.
Halliburton employees have to sign a clause that says in case of rape they won't sue the company, they'll go to arbitration.
And if it's open season on their own employees, you can imagine what happens to the discardable strangers.
Congressional hearings about why DynCorp and Halliburton were running child kidnapping rings, kidnapping women, tens of thousands of men, flying them around the world to slave camps at brick factories. And that's Chicago Tribune.
Dick Cheney made good money for his team off a criminally run war.
And it says one earned $39.5 billion for his corporation in the Iraq War, which was based on lies.
Meanwhile, Cheney makes a cool $90 million from the government muscle put behind this evil company. With a war denial that baffles, he even seems to have forgotten Native American genocide.
History and where we came from, a lot of people, my ancestors got here because they were Puritans. And there wasn't anybody here then when they came. There wasn't anybody here then when they came. There wasn't anybody here then when they came.
9/18. And it's that capacity to twist reality that connects Cheney with the Young Americans for Freedom National Advisory Board, which brainwash incoming neoconservatives. Cheney continues to create propaganda for legislation with Comey and Weinberger in the National Legal Center for the Public Interest. And he works tactic and strategy with Rumsfeld and McCain and the Jamestown Foundation. And with Woosley, Cheney operates as a non-Jewish advisor of neocon Zionist group Jewish Institute for National Security Affairs, or JINSA.
For more than 2 decades, the Jewish Institute for National Security Affairs, JINSA, has worked tirelessly to help guide that process to secure an effective United States defense capability, to safeguard vital national interests, and to strengthen the role of Israel and other democracies in bolstering freedom worldwide.
He's a part of the business council with the worst of the elites. Cheney is also a member of the bizarre Bohemian Club.
In this, the sacrifice type of ritual where just the members dress up in robes and then just bring a human body in effigy. Well, it's a life-size person and set it on the altar in front of this big 40-foot-tall cement demon and then burn it. That's a little harder to explain, I mean...
Halliburton in recent past became the oil rig monopoly after joining with Baker and Hughes. The only one who has gotten in any trouble since the SEC started its investigations in 2002 is the vice of Cheney's vice CEO, who got in trouble for bribes in Nigeria that are sadly perfectly legal when used as the business model in the US.
America paid attention when this man, Albert Jack Stanley, pled guilty to bribery.
Jack, you don't want to say anything?
Stanley, the former CEO of KBR, then a subsidiary of the Halliburton Corporation, agreed to a record 7-year prison sentence for masterminding the payment of $180 million in bribes in Nigeria.
And such an incitement is hard to get considering Halliburton contracts give immunity to legal repercussion, but there is no contract for bribes. For example, of official immunity, ask the International Criminal Court in Hague, who has been going after Cheney for a long time. And Cheney needs not Halliburton to screw the world. His genie oil with Murdoch and Rothschild drills the Golan Bank against the Geneva Convention, and this part of Syria cannot be drilled without military intervention.
Interesting. In 2013, a company called Genie Oil and Gas was granted exclusive oil and gas exploration rights to this 153 square mile radius here in the southern part of the Golan Heights, and this was granted to them by none other than the Netanyahu government. And as it turns out, in 2015, it was discovered that this Israeli-occupied Golan Heights in Syria has more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia does. Guys, this is...
Well, the board of directors of Genie Energy is a cast of dubious characters, if there ever was. It includes Dick Cheney, Mr. Iraq War of the Bush administration. It includes Jacob Lord Rothschild, who was a business partner of Khodorkovsky, Yukos Oil, back in the early part of this decade, or the last decade. And it includes the former head of the CIA, James Woolsey, among other, dubious characters.
And his influence over the White House is not a history lesson. He has the ears of the current administration and instilled Tillerson into Secretary of Defense, a dangerous man leading the modern incarnation of Rockefeller oil and responsible for multiple counts of torture camps for oil before he had the weight of being in one of the strongest official positions in the United States government. But most frighteningly, he is the idol of one Mike Pence, who is running the same sort of shadow takeover under a grandstanding president.
I frankly hold Dick Cheney in very high regard in his role as vice president
and Dick's co-author, co-conspirator, and in every evil way daughter has taken over his congressional seat following in Dick's footsteps, as she's seen here defending her dad on torture.
So it's one thing to say we're not going to do them anymore, which as a policy, of course, is the president's right to do. But then to take the step and say we're releasing all of this information, I think very clearly makes us less safe. It takes a tool out of the toolbox for every former president.
Also, quick to jump on the false flag of the Russian hack, Dick's response is, of course, calling for war.
Another aspect of Mr. Putin's conduct is the fact that he took his capabilities in the cyber area and used it to try to influence.
Dig into the docs for a deeper look into the forces taking the government away from the people. We will not forgive. We will not forget. Expect us.